So Lindsay.
I'm just realizing the camera issue. One moment.
Can you hear me, Lindsay?
Yes, I can. I'm just trying to turn on your cameras. Just one moment.
Yeah.
There you go. You should be able to turn on video now.
David?
Good evening, Council. Hope you have a good meeting. We'll,
Evening.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Good to see you all.
We're back. Seeing it's 7 o'clock on my phone, but we'll just give Councillor Lumley a couple minutes to see if he's coming forward tonight. Okay, not seeing Councillor Lumley in the room. I do have 7:01, and I will call this meeting of the regular council of Town of Gibsons to order for September 1st, 2020, acknowledging that we're meeting this evening on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. I'd like to welcome everybody, welcome councillors back from August, welcome those who are viewing this on YouTube, and those who are in council chambers this evening. I understand that we have some people sitting in council chambers. So I myself am in my office at City Hall for technical reasons. We can't have two separate computers running audio and video in council chambers at the same time. So that I am here at council at Town Hall. So we'll first of all start the meeting with the call to order, being 7:02 now on my clock. And I call for a approval of the regular agenda for the September 2020 be adopted. September 1, 2020. Councillor Kroll, thank you. Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. All in favor? Adoption? Thank you. Adoption of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. Minutes of the regular council meeting July 1st, 2020, and the regular minutes of the special council meeting of July 28, 2020. Recommendations that they be adopted. I would accept them both in the same motion. Motion to adopt. Councillor Kroll. Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. All in favor of adoption? Thank you very much. Business arising from the minutes. Council, do you have any business items arising from those minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll go right on to delegations and petitions. And the first delegation this evening is Donna Thomas, Sunshine Coast Labor Council, regarding the history and significance of BC Labor Day. Donna, I'll let you take the floor. Thank you, and welcome to council meeting. Nice to see you, by the way. It's been a while since you've been in council chambers. I think you're muted. The council chambers is muted.
You can bear with me for one moment.
Yeah.
And are the sound issues fixed?
Still muted here. There you go.
There we go.
Okay, you can go.
Is it talking to you? Oh, look at that, eh? Echoes and stuff. All right, what about now?
That sounded good.
There you go.
Oh, good. Am I clear?
Yes.
Other than that little echo, which it sounds so, is it talking to you? It sounds, yeah, trippy. That's the word, it's trippy.
I'm just gonna.
All right, what about now?
That sounded good.
Oh, good. Am I clear?
Yes.
Other than that,
Lynn said that if it helps, Donna could come down to my office and I could step out and she could use this computer.
It's possible it's because there's another unmuted mic in the room.
all right, how about now?
Yes.
It sounds good and I don't hear any echoes.
No, it sounds good.
I'll be careful not to shout in case I cause one.
Thank you.
That's like gremlins in the Second World War. You never knew when your equipment was going to start going funny on you. So good evening. May I officially begin?
Please.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm going to read because I don't want to miss any important points. And I can see you, but a little bit blurry because my glasses are a little bit like our equipment. I can only do one thing at a time with them, either look at my paperwork or see you. So I've chosen to look at the paperwork. In any case, I just want to let you know what our plans are, the Labour Council, in terms of celebrating Labor Day. That was my first point. Since we can't have our usual picnic in Dougal Park due to COVID protocols, we're going to try to give back to the community by donating a check or checks to the Community Services Food Bank, which covers the government part of it. I don't think I said that very well, but in any case, usually our affiliates do their money votes at the last meeting and before the summer when they receive our letters of request for donations. So our usual process has ended up being sort of turned on their head because of COVID. So we just had to roll with the punches. And so therefore, I think what you need to know in terms of what we want to do to give back to the community is that all the monies won't be donated at once in some giant, look at us, aren't we wonderful check. What's going to happen is that the money will be turned over as it comes in, because we've had to make a deadline of October for all our affiliates since they haven't been meeting, and it's going to be some time before they can do what they call a money vote. So that stuff will start coming in. It's just beginning to come in now. And so what we'll do is we'll donate it as it comes in, and we feel like in the winter there's going to be just as much need. So instead of feeding everybody all at once at the park for the picnic, we're going to be sending it to the food banks on a regular basis as the money comes in. I know that many of us will miss the picnic, and I like seeing my friends, my neighbors, And I've always felt that it's an important part of a community solidarity, and it contributes to the shape of our future just because it's recorded in our memories. It's recorded on, in pictures in the paper, and we bring the kids, and it's a great time. So right now, it's a different shape than we expected, but it is my contention, and I believe that my colleagues will agree with me, that the amount of goodwill and cooperation needed to meet the challenges to come is going to require that we keep our own house in order. So we have work to do as a Labor Council to make sure that we're on top of things. And is that okay? Yeah. To make sure we're on top of things. And I feel like we all need to run a tight ship, come with our own problems, internal problems and difficulties out of the way so that we can do the kind of cooperating we need. I'd like to talk about the union part of it. Most of our unions and our affiliates and our chief body in terms of the Canadian Labour Council is political action as essential to the future of working people. And that's always been the case. We'd like to see progressive policies be brought into all levels of government. And as a Labour Council, we want to be talking to our governments when time's available so that we can have some thoughtful dialogue and share some ideas. And as a volunteer organization, our delegates are almost all holding down full-time jobs. They've often raising families. Our lives usually are pretty busy, but we know that our communities need to keep on improving the quality of life for everyone. And we want to do our part. So we want to contribute to a broader understanding of the issues. For us, social justice, healthcare policies, taxation, trade, public institutions. Labor wants to participate, or partner, I should say, with all progressive social groups. And we'd like to respect the fact that we won't always agree and we won't always participate in certain events or actions. But it's important that we respect each other's decisions and contribute where a voice will be heard. For several years, we came to the Gibsons Economic Development Partnership. We sent a delegate, which turned out to be me, and I reported back to the Labour Council. And also I was sent to the RD meetings and the council meetings, and I reported back. And what that did was it allowed me to develop a lot of respect for our local media, because they reported from what I was there and I heard what they reported. It seemed to me like they were doing a good job. And I felt satisfied with that and was able to tell our delegates that they could probably be okay with what they read in the paper, because it was pretty well what I was hearing at council meetings. And that kind of information going back and forth is really important. In any case, once the Economic Development Partnership was ready to become coast-wide, then at that point, we just continued to pay attention to our local governments. I'm not sure what I'm doing for time, so I'm just going to try to be as quick as I can. Our goal as a Labour Council is to work towards a decent standard of living and a workplace free from discrimination. That's our bottom line. We believe the majority of Canadians want social and economic fairness, not just for a few, but for all. It's a big order, but we think it's one worth working for. And I personally believe that we will not succeed if we do not also continue to do everything possible to recognize the sovereignty of Aboriginal peoples. Nothing worth having can be built on an unjust foundation. And in conclusion, I'd like to acknowledge the town of Gibsons, because they did considerable work in providing a place for our Workers' Memorial in Dougal Park and the ongoing care for it. And we look forward to gathering there again as the fates allow. And that's pretty well where we're at, what we think and what we're up to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donna. And I would also acknowledge that this week I received an email from Mayuki Shinkai with a number of videos for the Canadian Labour International Film Festival.
Yes.
It's also being done in conjunction with Labor Day this year. A number of interesting films being put out. With permission, I would like to add those to our website for any who would like to access those and see those for the next couple weeks. And they'd be able to go on to there and just in recognition of Labor Day in our community, since, as you mentioned, we're not going to be having another celebration. So I'll ask staff to add those links to the website.
If you will be pleased, I brought that with me, but she said she'd send it to you already.
She did, and I've copied council and staff on that. But I think one further step that we could do in recognition of Labor Day would be to add them to the website.
Oh, thank you.
Does council have any questions for Donna? No. Okay. Well, thank you again for being present, and thank you for all that you do for our community, which is a tremendous amount. You do it very quietly and look for no recognition, but I thank you very much for that. Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to stay put. I've been told I can stay put. So.
You can stay put. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, you can tell when you're getting excited, you reverberate. Our next presentation this evening, delegation, is by Mr. Al Beaver, and it's Protect and Save Sharman Creek Lands in Perpetuity. Mr. Beaver, I don't think you're President Council Chamber, so I'm assuming we're going to see you on live. I can see you, Mr. Beaver. You're still muted. There you are.
And then there's the muting, the unmuting. Can you
Yes,
hear
good.
me?
Thank you. Welcome, and I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you for that. It's an honor to be here. Sitting in my office, be here, I guess. And I got to go to the share screen. And go to that one. Share. And can everybody get that?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's move right along here. And I can't seem to, I'll have to go from here to get that up. Okay, go to that icon. There, everybody can hear that, see me on it. Okay, thanks for this opportunity. This presentation is a compilation of many people's thoughts, beliefs, and hopes, and I've been asked to present it and hope I can do it justice in just 10 minutes. I wish to start by acknowledging this is the unceded lands of the Squamish Nation that I'll be speaking of. That's this little gem right over here, about approximately 13 hectares in size. The layout of this, well, clearly produce the council for a motion to protect this unique and irreplaceable forest ecosystem in perpetuity. The format I'll be laying it out in is the social, environmental, and economic. And it'll be assessed against the benchmark objectives of the town's natural asset management strategy and the town's strategic plan priorities, and how it fulfills and ticks these boxes. So I think Councillor Lumley probably said this as succinctly as possible, is the forest is my church. And well, if Mr. Lumley, Councillor Lumley was there, I'd have to say you're not alone in that sentiment at all. Over 1,000 hard copy petition signatures, over 450 online petition signatures. So they think the same way. The magnitude of this is really astounding. And for some perspective, I came up with this. I think this is pretty fair. This is up there with this same level of popularity. And with these sort of numbers, this no longer is a petition. It's more like a movement. One of the keystone characters of this large, intact, and functional functioning forest ecosystem is its multi-purpose, multi-beneficial attributes. It's relatively small size, approximately 13 hectares. This ecosystem contains all three of these attributes. It sits right into something like this. So kind of get a mental picture of that little dog bone here. I'll move to the next slide. And this is what we're here for reference. This is White Tower here. And this creates a corridor, but there's a refugium. This is the area we're talking about here, this forested area right in here. But this creates this link through here, but it also creates this overlay, this interactive link between them, which is incredibly important in this case, not just for the movement and the refugium of wildlife, but also the movement of people. And I hope to get time to share that with you a little bit later on this. So this comes from the United States Department of Agriculture, their Biodiversity Guidelines, a massive collection of peer-reviewed research. These black bars here represent minimum standards in terms of buffers and corridor widths. So this gray area here is provides some level of flexibility, but it's not take it or leave it. It requires the assessment of a qualified biodiversity and habitat specialist. So now this is in Imperial, of course, it comes from the US. This would be 100 meters here, and this would be like, about 5 kilometers on that. This is a very rather crude attempt at superimposing those minimum standards over this forested area in terms of riparian buffer, urban edge, trail buffers on this. And the take-home messages on this is it's full up. So that no more creeks, which is going to be a pretty easy box to tick, but even more, no more trails or no more urban edge are also easy to tick off because this is public land. We own the management responsibility for this land and the management obligation for it. This little shaded area here is particularly productive in terms of biodiversity. Can't say why, but you see a lot of it in there, and you see a lot of signs of it as well. Also, this switchback trail has really opened up the access to this area for people with a wide range of physical abilities. I see mobility scooters going by me all the time when I'm on this trail. It's really, really helped to open up this area and create a linkage all the way through. And excuse me, it's opened up this area of human connectivity between Upper Gibsons and Lower Gibsons, and the residents of Gibsons and the visitors, they've really responded in spades, old and young. Plus, there's been a collective observation of many people from that petition that we've spoken with, that it's been more active during the COVID-19 stress period. These same observations have been reported for urban forests globally. And so I say to those people who enabled this switchback trail and maintain it, just an absolutely brilliant plan. It really does something. Now, this is the least complicated spreadsheet I have for this analysis on this. Is that there is no reason to be targeting natural public lands for development. And there is lots of reason to be maintaining them in perpetuity. So what I have put together here, these are developments that are in the queue to be developed. Some are already started, and the end of the game, their end game number of dwelling units that they're going to add to it. So this is all in the queue. That all adds up to 1,490, and I know this number is low. The existing inventory, 2,423. That's formula-based. I use formulas that the Waterline used and Urban Systems used, just so that we can compare apples with apples, oranges with oranges. This creates a total of 3,913. These numbers across the top, this is the average household size. This is Gibson's right now, according to Statistics Canada. So this is Vancouver in terms of household population size, so 2.5 people per household. And this is 2.8. This is from a selection of other Vancouver bedroom communities, because Gibson's has been referred to as a bedroom community. This would be something like Coquitlam, Richmond, Surrey, up in that area. Now, with the demographics of Gibsons. It's an older demographic, so you're looking at empty nesters, single, two-people households with that baby boomer moving through. And so then it would be good risk management to anticipate risk and think that and believe that there's going to be a demographic shift. It's going to increase because this is an extremely low number, really. So to get to a point, and I can see just everybody a sigh of relief. Oh, please have a point here. So as it is, where we are already knocking on the door of an aquifer water supply deficit. And this is without the privately owned lands that have yet to submit development plans. Okay. That's an entirely different discussion. I don't want that to take away from this presentation and what it's about. So with respect to this, it's counterintuitive for public lands to remove valuable carbon sequestration and carbon storage assets. So we're going to need every bit of green space, public and private, that we can lay our hands on if we're going to even come close to a net carbon zero balance on it. I have the formulas to deal with that. We're sacrificing carbon credits. They're not given a lot of value at the moment, but that could improve too with time. The way climate change is escalating. Remove a valuable functioning forest ecosystem and its social, environmental, and economic benefits. Replace that with then emission sources, which is what development does. It is not a sink, it is an emission source with everything that goes along with it. Push us closer, if not into, a water supply deficit. Possibly impact an aquifer recharge utility. That comes right out of the Waterline report. So if we want to tick this is the natural asset management strategy. These are the objectives. If we want to tick all of these boxes, then we had best start with the public lands. That's where the low-hanging fruit is, because we have that responsibility to manage these. Trying to claw back some of this from the private sector, that's going to be a challenge. I'll leave that to you folks. Love to help you out with it. So, and how do we start this all? This all gets started by a council motion to protect this unique and irreplaceable forest ecosystem in perpetuity. The same holds true for the strategic plan. I'm not going to go through all of these, but again, this petition, this protecting of this forest ecosystem, it sends a message, and it supports many of these actually then support this petition. And this is substantial on this. I mean, we will preserve our green spaces. Well, it's right up there, it ticks all those boxes. This is so substantial, I had to put all these onto 2 slides to fit them all into it. This one at the bottom is especially special to me. It seeks opportunities to honor local Indigenous histories and traditions. I believe really strongly in that, and I believe this gives us an opportunity to bring that into it and really support that in a big, big way. We have the mandate to do this. And together we can pull this off. It needs to be managed collaboratively with local talent who have a vested interest in making it work. We don't need a lot of expensive consultants that'll ask us for a number and then give it back to us with a really large bill. We can do a lot of this in-house with the volunteers we have. I've met an amazing number of them through this. And this comes right from, we have the maestro of it sitting right with this webcast on it. Retain the natural assets that you have. Restore what you have lost. Build only what you must. This is like a mantra. This is for us. No one's rang the bell on me yet here, so I'll keep going on this one. This is how I can envision some of this trail system. No matter which way you go on this, we can start up here. So we've got A&W. If you need a hamburger before you get started, or a beer, or some caffeine, or you'd like to borrow some money. So work through White Tower Park. This isn't much fun, this walk down here, but then we get into this fully functioning forest ecosystem. We can work through this way, we can gather through this way. go through this. Well, this is what's really enabled for all physical abilities through this area here. This is very, very steep down here. A bit of road works that encourages the movement down this way, because this is the least grade. This is quite substantial here. I don't enjoy walking up and down it, but this is the least grade, and it's very accessible, and it's much more pleasant. Takes you past the tennis courts, Dougal Park, all the way down to the Gibsons Market, the Marine Education Center, round the corner, Wine Garden Park. We can get right through there now. Congratulations on that. A great win for the town of Gibsons. So that, stop for an oyster and some beer, and then come there. Oh, another beer if you wish. And it takes it all the way up to Armour's Beach. So they all the way through this, very accessible. And it's about 3.5 kilometers. It takes me about 40 minutes from start to finish either way. And that's a leisurely walk where I can take in the surroundings and really enjoy the tranquility and everything that Gibson has to offer on that.
Mr. Beaver, I'm going to interrupt you. Your 10 minutes
Yep.
is up here now.
I'm done. Thank you very much for allowing me to get that last one in.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for showing, I mean, what you are identifying, of course, is what exists in the trails we all enjoy today and use extensively. I should, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, the CIO and I took a very similar walk with a group representing Wildlife Protection Group, where we identified the town's intent to protect White Tower Park and they link it down through the same area. I think some of those pictures you'd find on our website and elsewhere. That also a presentation we made last week with the staff to the Squamish Nation. We met with a representative from the Squamish Nation Language and Cultural, identifying cultural values in Gibsons. And that was in furtherance of Council's resolution in July, where they resolved to work with the Squamish Nation to begin to identify traditional, cultural, important places and place names. And we intend to do that with them this year. So we've advanced that since the resolution of Council in July to do that. We met with Samaya Jordy, who's their representative for language and cultural values, and we'll be meeting with them further. I've also met with one of the councillors from the Squamish Nation, also on the same issue. We are working exactly in the direction you are talking. In fact, our vision is larger. I'm not at will to share that with you at this time. I fully anticipate that council will move towards the protection of those lands. I don't know, Corporate Officer, do you have a map, the zoning maps or the OCP map for those areas? Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah. Okay, I think that what you'll see if you look at the zoning and OCP is the current OCP identifies those lands as future parks. It looks like we're getting a screenshot showing here. Yes, this is the zoning map. So you'll see this large area in here. This is the English, the Sharman lands, and that is consistent with public and community use in that area. And these are, of course, the protected lands around the area of Gospel Rock, the new development going in there, and these are the protected lands flowing down from the development across. Our intention is to also get protection over lands through here that will link to this area here. And then if I could go down the screen up towards White Tower Park, can you grab me there? And that brings us into this area here, which is a White Tower Park area. And at this point in time, we've actually contacted the Organization for Healing Forests. David Kroll made that contact for us, indicated to them by letter that we intend to establish a healing forest. And that again is that linkage that you show coming down through here. I like to think that we'll be able to do more of a linkage down through the more wild area there, which allows that to develop. So the healing forest is the application has already been submitted for that. This is the area in here where we're looking at doing the stormwater retention pond and the development around that, which is approved and was announced earlier this year with $1 million grant from the federal and provincial governments. In terms of the OCP, current OCP, these areas here and up here are identified as future parks. And this council will be following through with that in 2021 in terms of those designations. There's much more that we're looking at doing, but as I say, I'm not at freedom right now to discuss that future plan, but what you are doing, I appreciate the strong support. I guess the one question I had from you is some of the literature that I read suggested that these lands were removed from park status in 2015. Can you tell me where you got that reference from and why that was identified as such? You're muted there, Mr. Bieber.
That came from some of this network, and I wasn't in terms of that where it got switched over. So I couldn't personally find that, and I have written up small word that it just simply has come. It's part of that, whatever that historic.
Part of the rumor. It never occurred. It never occurred. It never occurred. There was no change in status at that time. The only change that was looked at, which this council, as you know, declined to follow through for, was a rezoning of a portion of that parcel for the affordable housing. And this council declined to do that rezoning and instead moved that project up to a more suitable location further up Shaw Road. And that again was to protect that land for gain in perpetuity, which we are moving to do. I can assure you that's the intent of this council, be consistent with the OCP, consistent with the strategic plan that we have. But I very much thank you for your support and the support of your group on that. And so when we move forward, now we have to move forward to do those changes through public hearing. And so we will anticipate hearing from you in that public hearing process and support, because not everyone supports it. Surprised to say, I actually had, when I was running for council, I actually had some previous members of the council that I worked for in 2002 to 2007 expressed concern that we would protect those lands and not keep them commercially available. And I assured them that in the next 4 years that protection would be in place, and it will be done. So your support at the public hearing will be very important. I thank you for that. It's not something the council just can't, by the stroke of a pen, say this is done, because it requires a rezoning and an OCP amendment, and we will do it in that way to dedicate these as parks. It's somewhat surprising to me that over the years we have a number of areas like the property of the council that the town hall sits on is referred to as Holland Park. It's not a park. It was never dedicated as a park. The little piece of property that we're looking at in that Five Corners identified as English Park, zone commercial. It was never a park. It was just developed as, looks like a park, but it was never dedicated as a park. Our intention is to move forward and dedicate that as well as a park. So I appreciate your support and the support of all the people who have supported your petition in this. And thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you.
And thank you. I think you made, for everyone listening, I think you made a lot of people quite happy.
Good, thank you. Councilors, any other councilors wish to make a comment? Okay. Councilor D'Andrade? You're muted.
I enjoyed your perspective of linking, and I think this linking all the different forests and ecosystem, and this truly supports walkability, which is a big provincial goal and our goal as well. So I really look forward to have this area protected, and I would be happy that this happens really at the beginning of next year or very soon. I look forward because I think we understand the value of this area. And I agree, perhaps even though we will be doing some studies, but it's this area is so relevant that we should move forward.
Councillor Ladwig?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Beaver, for that presentation. I really enjoyed it as well. I just wanted to put a note out there that when time does come for council to start looking at the preservation of Charmin lands, I really liked the linkage map that you showed, but I often question why we always stop at Armors, and maybe there's a reason for this. But I would really like to see Gibson's Creek incorporated into some kind of a loop. That's a piece of land that I'm not really sure what the status is, but I know my family and I really enjoy walking that creek. And I would love it if we could think about, like, if we're going to go through the process of preserving a piece of land, you know, let's look at a whole loop system when we do it. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you, Mr. Beaver. I enjoyed that. Thank you.
Councillor Crowell, do you want to comment on the healing forest, the plan there?
I just, again, would like to thank Mr. Beaver for his presentation. And, you know, I was very excited when, you know, the town acknowledged that we were going to proceed with the Healing Forest project. I think it's a great opportunity for us to, you know, take the first move towards reconciliation. And I think it'll bode well for, you know, in future healing process with First Nations, not only the Squamish Nation, but I think it also indicates to, you know, the Seashell Nation, you know, that we recognize the importance of their lands that we walk on. So, you know, I agree with Councillor D'Andretti that to my mind, this can't happen fast enough, but, you know, the process is slow, but you know, there's some good steps been made in the right direction. So, and it, you know, as Mayor Beamer said to you, Mr. Beaver, it's going to be really important when this comes up to public hearing that, you know, that the enthusiasm of your presentation this evening is brought to that meeting as well, exactly, with the appropriate numbers, because it does speak volumes. Thank you.
And thank you again, Mr. Beaver. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our agenda now. And the next item on the agenda is inquiries. And inquiries on this at this time are inquiries related to any matter that is on the agenda this evening for consideration by council, except, and I have an exception here, short-term rentals. Short-term rentals, we have had the public hearings on those, and council cannot receive or consider new information prior to considering the results of and taking the next step in respect to the resolutions that is on the agenda this evening. So anything else, please, if anybody in the audience in the room has anything they'd like to contribute, please do so now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'll ask anyone online wishing to ask a question of council to please use the raise the hand feature. It's located at the bottom of your screen. And Mr. Mayor, I do see one, so I'm just going to turn on their audio.
Good. Michael Storer, I see your name's up there. Mr. Storer, you're still muted on my screen.
Perhaps we can revisit at a later time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Storer, we'll keep trying and we'll come back to you. Okay, thank you. Any other?
I'm not seeing any more, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll then move on the agenda to committee reports. And the first of all, I'd like a motion to receive all the reports this evening. Councillor Crowell, Councillor Ladwig, thank you. All in favor of receipt of the reports? Thank you very much. They're received. The first one is the committee of the whole meeting minutes. for July 21. And the recommendations they be received. These are actual minutes, not committee reports. So these minutes recommendations they be received. I see somebody, Councillor Crowell, move that. Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. Okay. Now the special planning and development committee meeting, the minutes of that meeting for July 28, 2020. And there is a recommendation that went directly to council from that meeting. So that this is a recommendation that these minutes be received. Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor Ladwig, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. They're received. Proposed new anti-noise bylaw. The recommendation that the noise bylaw be brought back to the Planning and Development Committee for review with the table highlighting the hours of restriction with the noise. That was done. And further, there'd be a provision for written approval for an extension of hours with a fee. That was done. And further, the town publicized that the current anti-noise bylaw is being reviewed and public input being sought. This is going to appear later on our agenda as well. So that I guess this is just receiving the recommendation from the committee that is being acted on later. Corporate Officer?
Yes, those recommendations have come to council to be passed, Mr. Mayor.
These are to be passed at this time?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the recommendation from the committee is that council passes. Somebody like to move those? Councillor Crowell moved. Councillor D'Andrade seconded. Discussion? Councillor Ladwig.
Sorry, maybe I'm just not following. So we're just supporting these motions. We're not supporting the actual timelines that we've outlined here.
Yes, it's the recommendations as written.
Okay, thank you. So I support it too then.
And we just want to clarify that understanding. Corporate Officer, you come back, please. So these are the recommendations and that would come forward and to be adopted later.
No, the Planning and Development Committee had it go back to the Planning and Development Committee. So these are the recommendations that allow that to happen.
Okay, so it's going to go back to the committee. Okay, all right. So, okay, all in favor of that then. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. That's approved. And then we'll do some publicity around that to look for any additional input from the public. So, and the invasive and noxious weed control bylaw, the recommendation was that the SCRD representative from the town of Gibsons raised the lack of disposal for knotweed and the need for broader education, public education, and that Jennifer Grens be invited as a delegate to educate the Planning and Development Committee on bylaw and recommendation next step. Someone want to move those two recommendations? Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. Councillor Crowell, thank you. Further discussion on that? Is there any? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Okay, thank you. That's approved. Council reports. August, I know it was August, but that didn't stop the world from turning. And so that I'll invite anybody to make any reports on what they did in August. Yeah, Councillor Crowell.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. Yeah, for a month off, it was a busy month. Started out on the 4th, there was the official sort of dedication of the pump house for phase 3, the water distribution. And it was really quite good because the MP was there, the MLA was there, the regional district was well represented, areas E and F. So it was really great. And then we moved on to White Tower Park and sort of the announcement of the funding that's been made available for that, and also mention of the Healing Forest opportunity. So, you know, again, it's more information being brought to the public about the importance of our natural assets and ecosystem. And then on the 6th and 7th of August was the Climate Caucus, which some people attended in person. I sort of popped in and out of it virtually. You know, I think The concern about the climate moving forward is, you know, I think it's in everyone's vision, and it's everything's sort of being looked at more closely with through the lens of climate change. So it was an interesting thing, and the updates that are coming out of that caucus are really good. I'm finding my inbox is somewhat inundated with more information as things move forward. On the 13th, Patrick Weiler had a Zoom conference, and then it was well, this one was completely Zoom. It was with the Minister of DFO, Minister Jordan. It was an hour-long dialogue session with her. She's certainly well aware of the problems we're having with derelict vessels, marine pollution, marine plastics. So I think she had planned on coming out here for a visit, but COVID sort of interfered with that. But again, it's a great webinar if you have the time to. It is on Patrick Weiler's website. On the 20th, I attended with you, Mayor Beamish, the education session on the opioid crisis. You know, it's COVID has certainly exacerbated the drug problem, and again, it's being hammered home that you know, drugs need to be, you know, people who are drug dependent need to be it needs to be decriminalized so people can have a safe source of medication. That right now the COVID crisis has just made for a really bad situation with very bad drugs on the scene. Sadly, we've had a number of deaths on the coast, which is something that hopefully we can get a handle on. I've mentioned it before. Coastal Health, in conjunction with a software company, has developed an app. It's called LifeRing and or Lifeguard. And it's, you know, if you know of anyone who even they're just using recreational drugs, it's a great app to have. You log on, it can track you through GPS, and if you're going to use something that you're not sure about, you indicate you're using it. It gives a time, and it sends you an alarm. And if you don't cancel that alarm, EMS is dispatched. So it is saving lives, which is and the app, surprisingly enough, has been incredibly well embraced on the coast. On Sunday, we had met with the Ferry Advisory Board, and I'm not sure if everyone is aware, and I was going to pass it on to Elizabeth to promote on the website. BC Ferries is doing an online survey about, you know, who's using the system, what's working, what isn't working. And to date, the main response to the survey has been from people over 50. And we all know that not everyone on the coast is over 50. So it's really important that we get the message out to younger people, people commuting who use the ferry system, to log on and get their voice heard, because otherwise the whole survey is just going to be very much tainted by an age demographic which aren't entirely the sole users of the system. And other than that, a few things, boats with messages on them. I got an opportunity to potentially work with Bylaw and search and rescue, which we've got a protocol in place now to work with that. So that was about it for me for August.
Thank you, David. Other reports? I'll go. And first of all, I wanted to highlight to everybody, if you can see this, this is our, let's see backwards. This is our 2019 annual report draft. It's available now. This will be officially received in 2 weeks by council, but it has to be issued for review prior to that. This is on our website if anybody wishes to look at it. The thing I like about it is that it has lots of pictures, and it makes it easier to read. So that please avail yourself of that. Have a look at it, and there are copies, councilors, in your box if you haven't picked them up already. I did join with Councillor Kroll on the Zone 3 water system startup and the White Tower Park. It was again another opportunity to talk with our MLA and MP about the plans for the area, about the plans for the protection of those areas, and to see them and their enthusiasm for that, which is greatly appreciated. I walked with Kelly Reddy and two others with the CAO through that White Tower Park, down through English Trail, back up the Mahan Trail, looking at the connections, and over into Gospel Rock, primarily looking at wildlife protection, because again, that's one of the issues that's in our strategic plan, is the protection of wildlife. And that's their concern, and looking at different things that can be done relative to the protection and to provide for the movement of wildlife through the creek systems and through the to the area. While we were doing that, as a matter of fact, we found a doe having a nice rest in a shaded area beside Charmin Creek, and quite accepting of the fact that we were there a few feet away watching her, and she was laying down in the grass by the creek. What a great way to spend the afternoon. I mean, who could object to that? So I've had two meetings this month on the 11th and again today with the Sunshine Coast Regional District Water Supply Advisory Committee, of which I'm a non-voting member, but it is interesting and very encouraging to see the work of the volunteers now on that committee, looking at the options for water supply from fresh eyes. And that's really what we're looking at. Some of the things we've heard before, but they're asking new questions, and that's really important to challenge the process and look at that. I've met with a member of the RCMP doing a detachment evaluation. Primarily, I reported that we're very pleased with the work of our staff sergeant and members on the coast. However, I said that one of the things that we were concerned about is the lack of observable presence of the members in uniform in our community patrolling. Having worked with the Business Watch program through May, June, July, or April, May, and June, I guess, one of the questions that we were constantly looking at is, did we see the RCMP during our shift? And unfortunately, the very minority of times people reported that they saw a member patrolling during the shift. That just speaks to the fact that the detachment is headquartered out of Seashell. When they come up here, they're part of the provincial force, not the municipal force. And I assured him that when we became municipally responsible for our own policing, we will expect a higher level of observable policing in our community. I also expressed concern for homelessness and the opioid addiction issues, and that they are also very aware of, and express any support that we can give them in that area. The opioid education meeting in Seashell was also very educational. It was attended by Councillor Kroll and I, as he mentioned, but also almost all of the Seashell Council was present. Medical health officer was there, and a few others making presentations. So it was very interesting and very worthwhile. I think it was just an hour and a half, but a very worthwhile time spent. I met with the Gibson Community Building Society, that's the public market, our board meeting, talking about how well they're doing this year and the challenges they're having, of course, and the plans for the upcoming gala that they're doing on the 12th of September. Met with representation with the staff, CAO and staff from the Squamish Nation, read the language and cultural values in Gibsons. A very uplifting meeting. She was very, very supportive of the approach that we did. We approached the Squamish Nation with our hands up, expressing interest in working with them to identify cultural areas, important areas in our community, to work with them in terms of naming some of our unnamed streets and other areas. And they were extremely supportive of that, and we will be hearing from them. The next step on that is that Samaya is going to go and report back to her committee that she works with. They will in turn report to the Council of the Squamish Nation, and that we'll discuss the next steps and the next action items on that. So we look forward to that perhaps being a fall activity with them. In addition to that, I had many individual meetings with people, and I sold my house and I bought a new house. So it turned out to be a very busy August. I did not get to leave town as was planned because suddenly we put our house up for sale and had to be there to keep it clean and the grass cut. So, but that was how I spent my summer vacation. Seeing no other takers, we'll move on. Move on to correspondence. There's several items of correspondence this week. And first of all, a motion from council to receive the reading files for the week ending July 27, August 4, August 11, August 14, and August 24. Motion to receive, please. Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. Councillors, is there any items you want to bring forward from any of those dates? Councillor D'Andrade?
Thanks, Mayor Beamish. It's the first council file from the 27th. There's a letter from the Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance.
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
Yeah. And I know you had a walk with the one of the, perhaps the director. Yeah. And they talk, I don't know if all council members had the opportunity to read, but they talk about adopting a separate and enforceable wildlife attractant bylaw. And I'm just, perhaps I can make a motion how council feels in directing staff to look at the recommendations. And on this particular file, they present several other bylaws from Whistler, Squamish, and other towns. So I think this is very important. I like their recommendations, and one actually regards short-term rental, and we have visitors here. So I think it's important to increase awareness. So perhaps I'm making a motion.
Well, perhaps I could refer the corporate officer first. Corporate officer, are they coming as a delegation shortly to council?
Yes, they're currently scheduled for October 6th.
Okay.
So perhaps we could wait until they come as a delegation. I know we were speaking in that context. Yeah, and I think it's a good idea. And I know our bylaw enforcement officer is working with them and with the conservation officers to look at the issues in this area. We're very pleased that when we did walk with the group the other day, that the areas that we did come across were, in terms of garbage protection, were well protected, and they were quite surprised at the level of protection some of our commercial areas have, and some of our, now it doesn't say that everybody has it, but certainly that's the direction that our bylaw is moving in. So, but we'll look for their presentation, and they have a wonderful little Lego bear package that they give away, and I'm hoping they're going to give some to council because it's an excellent program. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Crowell.
Allow Councillor Ladwig to go first.
Well, okay, aren't you the gentleman? Councillor Ladwig, you unmute, and thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crowell. Just a quick question. I just noticed there was a couple of letters in our package regarding compensation checks for folks that have replace their geothermal units in Parkland, and I'm just wanted to confirm that those things are moving forward.
Thank you. They are being taken care of in course. So I'm signing checks on a weekly basis.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councillor Crowell.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Gendretti about the Bear Alliance, and they did reference the same areas that we're looking at protecting with the healing forest and trails. One of the other things I wanted to mention was Donna McMahon's report. She highlighted in it the swearing in of Jason Lewis. I think I mentioned it at our last council meeting, but it was nice to see him turn out at the at both the pump house and the White Tower Park ceremony. So it's nice to see him again. are we going to do these week by week, or?
You
Can
can
we
do them
just-
however you like. Yeah, they've all been received.
The SCRD announced their launching their curbside recycling. Already there've been a few issues with people sort of overwhelmed with the size of the containers they've got. So it's going to be interesting because it is going to tie in with this whole wildlife potential problem and see how it plays out in the rural areas. There was the reopening of recreation facilities. We had a couple of letters that came in during the August break of people sort of upset with the Gibsons pool not being open. And as the representative on the regional district board, it really was a very difficult decision. Everyone's faced with economic hardship. Currently, as the situation is with the Gibsons Rec Center being reopened, the Seashell pool being reopened, and the Seashell arena being reopened, but dry floor only, we're going to be faced with a 5% tax increase to cover these facilities reopening. And it's really rather difficult to go into, new budget rounds coming up this fall already behind the 8 ball with a 5% tax increase. So it's not that we didn't want to open them. It was just the costs involved were becoming prohibitive. I realize it's very challenging for a number of people in Gibsons to get to Seashell. We were talking about, whether additional bus service could be provided to shuttle people back and forth. It's just a very difficult situation, and people don't really appreciate that even though the facilities were closed, the cost of maintaining them while they were closed didn't change. There's mechanical functions there that had to be maintained. So it, all in all, it was difficult, and revenue is going to be down, but the costs haven't gone away and the costs have increased because of COVID cleaning and things like that. So, we're sort of doing the best we can, but we're also keeping a mind on taxes, which nobody's happy about having increase.
If I could comment on that, Councillor Crowell, I am one of those people who disagrees with the not opening the Gibsons pool. I feel that I have a membership in recreation, and my membership in recreation does not allow me to go to the Gibsons pool, nor does it allow me right now to go to the fitness area at the recreation center. I'm not sure that money is always the driver. We will always have cost overruns, and the 5% increase is a 5% increase to the recreation budget, not the overall budget. So it won't result in a total 5% increase of taxation. It's one of those things that I think the regional district, we have a lot of seniors in our community. They just don't have that ability to go travel down to Seashell for the pool. Yet they have seniors fitness programs in the pool in Gibsons when it is running. So I'm very disappointed with their decision not to open the pool here, even if it was on a limited basis, 4 hours a day for that purpose. And I've expressed those views. So
Okay, I'm sure there's going to be more feedback coming back to the board.
You can express that for me if they haven't heard it. Okay. Thank you.
It's on record.
Thank you. Anything else, Councilor Dindrat?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge the letter from Kim Wilkinson, and she, this is on the 27th of July file, and she asked to consider moratorium on the non-hazardous tree cutting until the bylaw is adopted. And I know there's some stream of emails talking about the cutting of certain trees in Eaglesville. So I wonder if this is a good time for the report from, I believe there will be some report from the Director of Infrastructure regarding this. Regarding the possible removal of trees in Eaglesville's development.
may come up later. It's not the inquiry. Yeah. Mr. Newman, do you want to weigh in on this or?
Sorry, Mayor Beamish, you're asking me if I want to weigh in?
Well, I see you've lit yourself up, and so yeah.
I was anticipating, but I'm more than happy to wait for inquiries if you prefer.
Yeah, no, go ahead. And might.
Okay. So yes, staff are aware that work is starting up at Eagle Crest, and we had a meeting with them on site, Director of Planning, myself, our natural asset technician. Can't remember if there was anybody else there or not, but anyway, we met with the developer and walked along the tree line between their property and the Charmin lands, and we explained the where council was at with the readings of the bylaw, and explained that it was a voluntary compliance with the bylaw, but regardless, we asked them if they would be open to us. We came up with a different term besides guinea pig. Allow us to dry run, I think that's what it was, the permitting process for the tree bylaw to just give us an opportunity to try out the regulations that have been proposed. And they were agreeable to that and have been in communication with us. And so we had staff out on site today, meeting with the contractor, and the trees as near as can be. Sorry, we have a meeting tomorrow with them on site, but we did attend site today, and as near as we were able to determine, the trees that are in question are inside the building envelope. So tree bylaw or not, they would have to come down. And those are on the upper bench at the north, along the north property line. There's some cottonwoods there and a couple of cedars. And as I say, those would be, regardless of the presence of the bylaw does permit trees to come down within a building envelope, of course. And so we went through that process with them, and the developer is also going to be in contact with us in regards to surveying the south property line with the trees and establishing the actual legal property line between the Charmin lands and Eagleview, and then they will provide a survey of the trees for us, and we'll review that and continue working with them on proceeding with the development, trees and otherwise.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Any further questions on that?
No, it was great to have a report so we can all understand.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is on 9.2, and that's the correspondence from Honorable Claire Turbina, Ministry of Transportation. And this is response to a letter that I wrote relative to the paving on the highway and the apparent lack of intention to support our crosswalk request and to support a bike path on the west side of North Road. And this also was prompted by a letter received from our active transportation group. And so that the minister, I felt, responded timely and positively, and the staff was working with the contractor to achieve our objectives in that area. The next one was from Lindsay Cole, and she forwarded some information about a Squamish leadership transformational leadership learning opportunity. I believe the information, some information is in your package. Other information I may have sent you directly. I would like to participate in that. There is a $340 cost to do that. So my request is that be approved for that expenditure by council. And of course, any other council member. It's a 4-week workshop over a 4-week period. So that, but I believe it's 4 half-day sessions involved with study in between. So if council, any other members of council would like to participate in that, you can add your name to this resolution, and then we'll get you registered for it. Assuming there's still room on it to register, and I haven't checked that. So my request is that the reimbursement of expenses for my participation. Councillor Kroll?
I'll move that.
You'll move that? Councillor Ludwig? Second it? Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Does anybody else want to participate? I will report back to you as to how it goes, but I think it's beyond time that this community established a relationship with the Squamish Nation. And I think that there are things being done ourselves, the initiative we've done, the initiative, the public market is similarly doing a cultural initiative with them. And I think that we want to be involved with them as much as we practically can as a community. So that, thank you for that. And also all in favor of that, by the way?
Mhm.
Thank you very much. I'll let you know how it goes. Councilor Bidrad, yeah.
Just can I give you an answer? I need to check the dates just to make sure.
You can, but you should put your name in that resolution now, so that if the mover and seconder agree that we add Councilor Bidrad to that resolution, there's the corporate officer coming in saying no, we can't do that. We have to do a new resolution. So that reimbursement expenses for the Squamish Lead Transformational Leadership Program be approved for Councilor Bidrad. Somebody move that? I'll second that one. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, thank you. So if you do register for it, then you'll be reimbursed the cost.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the bylaws, the zoning amendment bylaw 1065 for short-term rentals, and that's on page 49 to 76 of your agenda package. And we've already received the report. So now we'll move on to the report, and who is going to present it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to present it on behalf of the Director of Planning, if that's all right.
Yes, thank you.
So the Director of Planning has written quite a detailed report that goes over the history of the bylaw, including the previous council resolutions. And I'm not going to go through all of it again for council, but I am going to jump in at the summary of the public hearing and just go over that portion of it. So the public hearings were held on Zoom on July 14th, and they were reconvened on July 21st. And there are YouTube links available for the public to watch both of those meetings, and they're available on our YouTube channel. And if anyone needs that address, it can be found on our website, or they can email me for it. Of the total participants on July 14th, we had a total that includes council and staff of 78 attendees. And on July 21st, we had 49 attendees. Of those who spoke and handed in submissions pertaining to the short-term rental bylaws, the tally for respondents, duplicate speakers were counted only one time, include 11 individuals opposed to the bylaw, 2 individuals in favor, and 1 who was neutral. Most of the opposition to the amendment bylaw pertained to the requirement that short-term rental accommodation must be administered by a person who lives on the property full-time, and that person must be present on the property during guest stays. Staff note that this clause was included in the bylaw with council direction to allow short-term rentals where a host was immediately present to manage the guests, and as a result, reduce negative impacts to neighbors. This also ensures a long-term resident is on the property, which supports creating a sense of community by knowing your neighbors. Many of those who oppose that clause own property in town and live elsewhere, noting that the STR use of the property helps pay their mortgage. Some individuals noted that they would like to eventually live in Gibsons, have purchased property here, and the STR use supports their income so they can eventually move here. Some noted that STRs with a host on the property impacts privacy to the guests and prevents large families from gathering on the same property and staying together. Staff note that the bylaw substantially relaxed the current regulations by broadening the scope to allow many more properties to have short-term rentals, albeit with clear regulations around safety in place and fines for bylaw contravention. There was a mixed support for the added safety measures, but also opposition to the regulatory approach with concerns raised over bylaw enforcement capabilities. In terms of next steps at this point, council may pass a third reading of the bylaw. They may request an amendment or they may defeat it. Should council wish to amend use or density, another public hearing will be required. Following third reading, should it occur at this time, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure must approve the zoning amendment bylaw prior to the final reading adoption. And the recommendations from staff are on the first page of the report.
Thank you. A question, Corporate Officer, if you know the answer to this, is how long does it take for the ministry approval in this type of situation to go through?
I'm not familiar, but we have had a couple of bylaws that went to them and came back very quickly within about a week and a half.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what their standard timeline is.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, council, does anybody choose the recommendations are in your package? They also appear in the report. We have received it, so the recommendation that council give the zoning amendment bylaw number 1065-47-2020 to regulate short-term rentals a third reading. Somebody care to move that? Okay. I'll move it to put it on the table. Somebody care to second it for discussion? Councillor Kroll, discussion? Okay, discussion. It's on the table for discussion. So concerns, Councillor Ladwig?
Well, so I've got a question, I've got some comments, and then I might be proposing an amendment, but now I'm a little not concerned to do that, but I'll see whether or not my proposed amendment takes us to another public hearing, which I'm hoping doesn't happen. But I'll move on here and we'll see where this goes. So my question is, if I'm hoping someone could elaborate for me a little bit on what a sleeping unit contains and whether or not a sleeping unit can include multiple bedrooms. So can a sleeping unit have 3 bedrooms in it? Because our bylaw currently says that we can have 1 dwelling unit and or sleeping unit, but it's not clear to me whether or not that sleeping unit can have multiple bedrooms. Is there someone that could answer that?
Somebody, I don't see anyone planning with us tonight, so to speak to that, is there anybody who can speak to that? CAO, are you able to address that?
Not entirely certain, Mr. Mayor. I don't, my understanding would be that a sleeping unit is just a bedroom within a residence rather than a separate form of housing altogether.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, I'm identifying this for me as a bit of a gray area in the way the bylaw is written, because it does say that a short-term rental can have 1 dwelling unit or sleeping unit. And the only thing that is different between those two things from what I can tell more or less is that a dwelling unit contains a cooking facility and a sleeping unit does not. But we don't talk about the number of bedrooms that can have. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because, we don't want to make this bylaw so restrictive that we're not supporting the short-term rental industry. It is a great industry for our community and it does help a lot of people. And we want to make sure that we develop a bylaw that's usable for them as well as putting bounds around it for the potential impacts that an industry like this can cause to its surrounding neighborhood. but we're just not clarifying whether or not, you know, a number of bedrooms can be in one unit so that a whole family can come and visit. For example, if a family with 2 teenage kids come, can they both have a bedroom?
Well, sleeping unit is defined in the bylaw. It's on page 73 of our bylaw. It says a sleeping unit means a unit primarily used for sleeping, containing sleeping and sanitary facilities, but no kitchen or cooking facilities.
I see that.
Yeah.
It just isn't very descriptive. So I'm just trying to, so I'm just flagging that we don't talk about, and I'm fine with that. Like as far as I'm concerned, having an on-site resident or having someone on-site deals with any concern with having multiple bedrooms. So I'm totally fine with it. I'm just wondering whether or not we want to provide some clarity around that. Because the way it's written right now, it kind of sounds like it's just one bedroom. And
Yeah, it does sound like a unit, one bedroom. Yeah.
and that's quite restrictive. So I'm flagging that.
Yeah. Under definition of a bedroom, it says that a room located within a dwelling unit and where the primary function is sleeping.
Yeah, and so that's, you know, we don't want to make this so restrictive that a family can't come to visit the Sunshine Coast or Gibson. Okay, so I'm flagging that. I want to say that overall, I really like where this bylaw is going. Personally, I do feel that short-term rentals do have a potential to take away from the inventory of long-term rental stock on the market. And I do feel that this helps to address that. I do believe that short-term rentals can create voids in neighborhoods by having homes vacant for periods of time. And I think our approach with this bylaw helps to address that. I do think that on occasion, there can be noise that comes from some of these facilities or disturbances that is not fair for a neighbor to have to deal with. And I think having an on-site resident helps to deal with that as well. And overall, I also believe that short-term rentals, people that buy a residential property for the sole purpose of running a commercial venture, I think it's a misuse of the residential zone. And I am getting to my proposed amendment. So with this vein and this thinking in mind, if we're kind of saying that it's an inappropriate use to use a residential property for a commercial venture, then how are we differentiating short-term rentals and commercial properties? And so I bring this up because I've kind of come full circle on this commercial issue. I never thought about commercial properties as containing short-term rentals before our bylaw, or sorry, before our public hearings. And I have given this topic a little bit more thought. And it does occur to me that people that own commercial properties are paying 3 times more in property taxes than people in residential neighborhoods. And they're doing so for the right to operate a business. And yet the way we've drafted our bylaw, it actually makes it more restrictive for those individuals to run this type of business than people in a residential zone. And the reason I say that is because it's not really fair or appropriate to expect that people that own commercial property live on their commercial property. And yet the way we've done this without exempting commercial property from requiring an on-site operator basically means that they can't run a short-term rental on their property. And when you start to think about the fact that we still don't have a hotel in Lower Gibsons, commercial properties are an appropriate use for this, I think. We recognize that short-term rentals do provide an important service that brings tourists to our community, that help to keep our restaurants busy and help to, you know, provide employment for those individuals to service those businesses. And so I think from a balance perspective, we might want to reconsider how we're applying this to commercial properties. And I would personally like to propose an amendment that we exempt commercial properties from requiring an on-site operator. There's my spiel. I don't know what that means to our public hearing. I gave it more thought, and considering the fact that this is an industry that seems appropriately positioned to be in some commercial spaces down in our vibrant little hub, that maybe we should reconsider that.
Right. I mean, only one commercial property came forward during the presentation, and as I recall, was the Beachcomber coffee shop, and they expressed that they have a unit upstairs in that they like to rent out. I guess I'm not convinced they couldn't do that with the right kind of zoning and application in terms of, but I'm not aware of other commercial premises that would be looking at converting what would be commercial to short-term rentals as opposed to the purpose of commercial, which is what you want to have. So
For sure. No, and I'm not proposing, and I have no idea. It could just be that one individual for all I know. It's more of a principle thing for me. If we're saying that these businesses are not appropriately zoned in a residential neighborhood,
yeah,
then why are we not recognizing that in a commercial neighborhood they would be?
would you extend that to commercial or extend that to industrial and as well?
Well, I'm glad you asked that actually, because I noticed in our bylaw, there's, and again, maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but I took a note of this as well. Give me 1 second. We say that we can't run an STR in a live work area, which I find very weird. Like, why wouldn't we let that happen? So let me just pull that up here for a sec. Under section 8.7, well, you can read it yourself, but it says is not permitted in the marine M1, industrial L1, live work LW, et cetera, et cetera. So that kind of, I found a bit odd too.
Yeah. It may be odd, but it's been there for a while there as it's gone through process and committee, that's all. Yeah, other comments, councillors? Yeah, Councillor Dindrad.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I'm actually glad that Valeria brought this issue because I haven't thought about, sorry, Councillor Ledwig brought this issue because the way I see it is a complex bylaw in a way, the implications. And I don't mind taking a little bit of more. I know the survey was done a while ago and involved certain number of people, but the public hearing, we heard from a certain group, a different group basically. But one thing that I feel that there is a lot of impact. So obviously I'm cautious. I want to think more about it and look at pros and cons of situations. So by the time we really have the bylaw, we are really, we understand all the impact. One thing that has been the back of my mind is, I understand that this bylaw has a goal to provide, relief to neighborhoods, character, support the character. I understand, and it basically is about parking and noise. But my understanding is another goal of this bylaw was to support long-term housing. And we have an assessment done, and we haven't even heard from the assessment. And the assessment, actually, we will be hearing on the 18th of September. So I don't understand why we cannot, my preference will be to hear the assessment, because depending on the assessment, we may have to go even more stronger, for example, stringent on the bylaw. One example, I was reading about the bylaw in Bowen Island. They allow short-term, unhosted as well, but they restrict to 120 days a year, because now you give a fair competition to long-term rental. It happens that 120 years of short-term is equivalent of 1 year of long-term. So I think these are things we have to think about it. And that's the part that I feel uneasy about the bylaw, like voting right now, because we haven't even heard the assessment. It could be the assessment, it's really the situation is worse than we think. We haven't quantified anything, and we might have to look at this bylaw even with a different eyes, more stringent. And it's interesting that one of the comments on the report, and I really appreciate this report, was really good because it really brought the history and all the everything we went through, a good compilation. But I like that it says, staff note that the bylaw substantially relaxed the current regulation by broadening the scope to allow more properties to have short-term rentals. So now we are also increasing the amount of short-term rentals, which if we look at the math, it may decrease long-term rentals. So that's my resistance to rushing with this bylaw. I'm happy not even not vote for third reading, or maybe just, my preference is to hear the report, to have time to think about it, to see. And by the time we have a bylaw, then we are sure that we cover all the aspects.
Okay, further comments? Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I think both Councillor Ludwig and Councillor Dendretti have brought up valid points, particularly in light of the housing survey that's coming up. The other aspect is that our neighbors are also have the short-term rental bylaw on the agenda. Yeah. And I think it's Sea Shelter dealing with it this week. I think one of the things that we did from the onset, that we wanted to be on the same page as everyone else, because it's short-term rental doesn't seem to know boundaries. Half the listings, in fact, a number of the speakers at the public hearing were in fact non-resident. Their units, their short-term rental units were not even in the town of Gibsons. So I think it's important that we be on the same page with the regional district and the district of Seashell, just for consistency with bylaw enforcement. I would be quite happy to defer the voting on this third reading until after we have the housing assessment report. There's a lot of theories about, the people say, even if I couldn't do short-term rental, I wouldn't put the house available for rental, it would just sit empty. The other thing that we're going to be faced with, which is of huge impact, is as of yesterday, the restriction on eviction to people who were having problems with rent payment during COVID has been lifted. So I'm suspecting there are going to be a number of people madly scrambling, looking for rental accommodation, or they'll join the ranks of the homeless. So I think we have some big issues ahead of us, and I'd be quite happy to defer this, voting on the third reading until after we've had the housing assessment.
Councillor D'Andrade, did you want to make a motion? Corporate Officer?
Yes, you currently have a motion on the floor, Mr. Mayor.
And that's right. There's no motion at this point in time, but a motion to defer is it can be made at any time, and it oversees. So
absolutely. I would just ask that if council is going to direct any amendments, that they give staff some direction at this time. Yeah. Otherwise, this same bylaw will come back in this exact form.
Yeah, I think that I suspect there'll be further conversation after months of conversation. There'll be further conversation about it. I think that at this point in time, the motion to defer, and then councillors can come back with specific amendments that they choose later on. It may be for a different bylaw. I'm disappointed that we go down this track this far and end up looking at the bylaw again with seeing things that have been in there, but that's up to council. I would rather myself adopt the bylaw and amend it later on if there's a problem with it. But and I'm not, I appreciate that our neighboring communities are doing something. Sometimes you do something first and somebody follows you, as opposed to saying, well, let's wait and see what they do, and then we'll follow them. And I think that we had an opportunity here in this one to lead. But I'll take a motion to defer, Councillor D'Andrade, because that overrides the motions on the floor. Do you want to state your motion?
I'll make a motion, yes, to defer the third reading after the council has the opportunity to see the report and discuss the report.
So that would be to the that'd be the first meeting in October you'd be deferring to.
And I'm sorry to interject again, Mr. Mayor, but receiving new information will cause another public hearing.
I believe so, yes. So will you defer till the first meeting in October? Because you have to defer to a specific date.
Okay, the first meeting of
Yeah,
October.
so that, okay. Seconder for that motion? Okay. Councilor Ladwick, are you seconding it? Okay, I'll second the motion to defer because it doesn't appear to be an intent to pass this bylaw tonight, so that all in favor of deferral or discussion on deferral. Oh, there's actually no debate on deferral. So we actually have to vote, and we either agree with it or we vote it down. So all in favor of the motion to defer? Okay, opposed? Okay, that's all. We're unanimous to defer. A deferral motion doesn't elicit conversation. It is one that is interjected at any time, and it must be voted on, so that and it has to be deferred to a specific date, which is what's being done. So in the meantime, you can think about how we want to respond in October when we see this bylaw again. And once again, it can't be generally discussed in that context. So we'll see what comes up to us in October. So, and we can defeat it at that time. It's a simple matter to defeat it. Okay. Okay, Councillor Kroll, you've been trying to get my attention, then Councillor Ladwick. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Bingley. And I do apologize because, as you say, it could have been passed and then amended at a later date. So, we've made the decision to defer it. A lot of time and effort has been spent by staff getting us this far. And, perhaps deferring to your wisdom, it might have been more expedient to have passed it and made later amendments to it, depending, based on the subsequent reports that have come in. But anyway, we're here now.
Councillor Ladwick?
Yeah, like Councillor Kroll said, we're here now. I am not entirely thrilled with how this whole conversation's gone, unfortunately, but so just so I understand process, really, obviously we're going to wait to hear the report on the report, but are other issues like my proposed amendment going to come back to us through a report again? Like, how does my concern get addressed or brought up or discussed? Or
It's because we've gone through the public hearing, we're in that stage in time where we're in an awkward position. We can just walk away from it and start all over again. Or we can see if we learn anything new on the from the housing report that would cause you, when you think about it later on, to propose an amendment or to propose a defeat of the bylaw. And so that you can do that, you can propose an amendment as long as you're not affecting density, or what was the other, density or something else?
Yes.
Yeah, so that we'll take a look at that, but we will be having the discussion of the housing report. I do know that as a result of the intention of council, there were short-term rental houses in neighborhoods that anticipated change and decided to move on, put the house up for sale, and return the house to the community, in the sense that it doesn't become a void in the neighborhood, and that's a very important part of this bylaw. As our OCP mentions, we want to support communities, not vacant homes, and so we'll see.
I just want to say, I also wanted to clarify that as much as I appreciate the disappointment that we've come this far in this bylaw, and to now be re-examining a few things. I do want to point out that this is appropriate use of process. My
Oh, yeah.
thought
No,
first
yeah.
property came as a result of the public
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah.
And that's what made me think about it. So, I mean, I'd never even thought about STRs in commercial before. So I just wanted to raise that.
Okay, we are moving on our agenda. The next item on the agenda is new business. There's no new business or no notice of motions. So we go to inquiries from the public, and we have a relatively short time because we have a meeting following this. So we will stick to the maximum 10-minute inquiry period.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I do have an inquiry from the council chambers.
Thank you.
And also I'll instruct anybody who's online watching the meeting, if they would like to ask a question of council, if they could use the raise the hand feature at the bottom of the screen, and I'll turn their audio and video on.
Thank you.
And our question from council chambers is from, here, one second, I'll try to turn the video back on.
There we go. Hi. I'll pass it on to you. Lindsay, you can ask for me.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, multiple.
Perhaps you could relay the question.
Yeah. I'll just repeat the question on her behalf.
Yeah.
I would like to know that when trees come down on private property,
When trees come down on private property,
is it possible for us to, oh God, it's the wood, the trees, the wood.
is it possible for us to
make use of the wood of the trees that come down?
make use of the wood of the trees that come
I
down?
haven't thought this through, but I do know that sometimes if a beautiful old cedar has to come down, then it might be that we could use it for something. And I wondered if we can bonyize it as a town.
So that was the question, whether we could use the wood for anything.
I think my understanding would be if it's on private property, you'd have to get permission from the owner. If it's on public property, you'd have to get permission from the town to use that wood. And the reason being is to take that next step of cutting it up. You would be using tools that could be dangerous, and if you're on somebody's property, they'd have a liability for that. So, but talking to somebody and saying, hey, I'd sure like the wood from that tree, they might cut it for you and do that. So,
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have one more question, and I'm just going to turn on the audio here.
Hi there, Council. Sophie from Coast
yeah,
Reporter. Okay.
recognizing the reporter. Yeah.
Just wanted to confirm with the decision to defer the short-term rental bylaw, what the implications are for another public hearing. Is that has it triggered another public hearing, or would it depend on new information coming forward and where that comes forward?
It would depend upon new information and the nature of that information. In public hearing, you can't amend the bylaw in terms of density, one other matter, without triggering a public hearing. There are changes you could make to the bylaw without triggering it, but there are some things that will trigger a public hearing. So at this point in time, we're not there yet. And so we'll just have to see and take advice from our director of planning when that happens. So we have simply deferred it. So the bylaw is still at having had second reading and the public hearing. Whether or not it will go forward again and be adopted, given third reading in October, or whether there will be an amendment that triggers a public hearing. We can't anticipate that right now. We'll just have to wait to see. But it
Okay.
could actually could continue and it could be adopted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything further, Corporate Officer?
No, I believe you covered the two situations that would trigger a new public hearing. If council requests staff come back with amendments, including a change to use or density, and if new information is received by council, those are the two items that would trigger a new public hearing.
Okay, well now, Councillor Ladwig.
Can I just ask for clarity on what use or density means?
In
this
yeah.
Well, with the accessible plan, I was thinking about the two items through you, Mr. Mayor, for Councillor Ladwig, around the commercial property and also the STRs in industrial areas. My recollection of those, when the OCP got amended to include live work, there was even back a few years, there was already talk about that those units were not to be rented out, but for the use of the person that was occupying it. It's a bit of a allowing in a way, sort of a form of supportive housing, because you're allowing a use that's typically not allowed in an industrial area. In relation to the commercial, and this is to be confirmed, but just in my first impression of it is that we were basically talking about changing the permitted uses in properties. On the short-term rentals, on the commercial one, it might be able to circumvent that, not circumvent, but sort of through an exemption, and that's the part I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, an exemption was what I was hoping we would land on at some point, but
See, the commercial suggests to me that it's not owner occupied. If it was owner occupied, it would just be another space, a residential within a commercial sort of thing. But so that now you're talking almost of a motel. So creating a motel type of situation, which is a commercial use. So that so they would just apply for a license of that kind of occupation, in my view, and say, okay, I have a one-room motel.
Well, this is why I was wondering about the number of rooms, because, and this is why I didn't just make propose an amendment to exclude commercial from the entire bylaw, because we haven't I don't know how many rooms it takes to become a small boutique hotel. Like how many, where's the line? And so I feel like this commercial discussion.
Sounds like you need to do some research and looking on that sort of thing. So that, yeah, it's not something we're familiar with. But, yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Councillor Kroll.
Can I make a motion to extend, considering the time?
Yes, and extend to 9:15.
How optimistic.
Sorry?
I said that's very optimistic.
Do you give me you have to give me a time, Councillor Kroll.
9:30.
9:30, okay. Yeah. Okay, all in favor of extending to 9:30? Oh, seconded, sorry, seconded by Councillor Ladwig. All in favor of extending to 9:30? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, so we are extended to 9:30. I'd now like a motion to close on receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communication necessary for that purpose. Okay, moved by Councillor Kroll, second by Councillor Ladwig. All in favor to close the meeting? Thank you. Thank you again, everybody, for coming. And again, I mentioned the annual report. It's on the website. Please take an opportunity to have a look at it. It will be on our agenda in 2 weeks' time for a presentation. Okay. So thank you, and I will see councillor members shortly at the in-camera meeting, the closed meeting. Thank you.